Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, a part of Wilderness Fire Productions, where we are cultivating the passion for books, audiobooks, and storytelling. Since time first began, we have been storytellers. Everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. I'm your host, James, also known as the Kilted Narrator, and today I'm talking with author Jack Adkins, an Eastern Kentucky IT professional by day, longtime dungeon master, and the writer behind the humorous epic fantasy series, The Dragons of Dorwine. In that world, a cocky half-goblin con artist named Anuka Sandbar is on a desperate search for his missing father, while dragons rule as gods and hoard all the magic. It's funny, adventurous, and surprisingly deep, with themes of faith, power, mercy, and the cost of hard choices. Jack also just finished the trilogy and has shifted gears into grounded Appalachian thrillers with his new Nolan Keller series, starting with The Devil on Klack Mountain, a story that mixes small-town secrets, modern espionage, folklore, and buried science under the mountains. We'll talk about how 30 years of tabletop role-playing shaped his storytelling, what it was like landing legendary narrator Michael Kramer as a self-published author, the leap from Dragons to Conspiracies, and how he balances writing with a full-time hospital job and raising 4 sons. Ladies and gentlemen, please, big round of applause and welcome Mr. Jack Adkins. Jack, sir, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me. This is a thrill. I'm excited.
I'm excited too. Now, talk to me about the whole IT professional bit in where you're at in Kentucky. How did that dual life begin, and how did the two worlds feed each other?
I got into IT on accident because there was a job that was available. And I started with doing some kind of grunt work for a local in Lexington, Kentucky, for a local IT shop. And I started learning a few things, and one thing led to another. And 30 years later, it's 30 years in June, I've done about everything from networking to web design, currently in virtualization. I've done the break fix stuff, all that. So it's just kind of evolved. I've never gotten super deep into any one discipline, and that's kind of served me pretty well. So as an IT guy, my passion kind of shifted from I'm going to get every certification I can and learn all these things to the nth degree, where I started to become more people focused.
Sure.
And so now there's younger generations that I get to build into, and that's fantastic. So I love that part of it.
Really cool. Talk to me about the 30 years as a DM for D&D, characters, campaigns, backstories. When did you decide it was time to turn those stories into published novels?
Probably about 5 or 6 years ago. So I have 4 boys, and they range from ages 17 to 25. And when the oldest 2 got old enough, I taught them to play D&D, and the younger 2 were right after that. So I had my own built-in group, and that was fantastic. And then something weird happened. They got friends of their own, and they started playing with those friends, and they didn't want to play with Dad anymore.
Yeah.
So I had all these stories, and I had all these campaigns and all these adventures I had written. And I've been writing since 4th grade. I write as a catharsis, and it's something if I don't do, it really bothers me. So I have done that. So it kind of naturally flowed into, I need something to do with this creativity, so I'm going to write a book. How hard could it be? And obviously it's extremely hard, but
Yeah.
that was how the transition started.
Yeah, when you talked about your boys moving on to their own D&D groups, I'm now on that cusp as a father myself of 4 children. My oldest is getting ready to be 22, and then I've got the 3 younger ones that are in their later teens. And yeah, they're starting to find their own gaming groups. I'm like, oh man, Dad wants to play too, guys. But at least I know I raised them right, because now they can continue that creative search for like-minded people around their own age and just continue with the fun that is gaming. It makes my dad heart so happy.
Yes. And my wife doesn't play. She's not creative in that way, but she's did something really early on. She said, let's make a space here that the kids can bring their friends and play. Because as a parent, you're always concerned about, what are my kids doing? Where are they? What are
Yeah.
they into? What are their
Yeah.
friends like? Well, I got to know all their friends intimately, and I got to DM for some of them and then watch them play. And that was a real blessing. So I'm really grateful to my wife for that. Um, so we've got a really cool gaming space that we take advantage of from time to time. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I actually kind of want to do the same thing when the day comes that my wife and I are empty nesters. We got a spot downstairs that I want to convert into a giant game room to where all manner of games are welcome, be it D&D or just regular board games, Warhammer 40K, if that's your thing. Yeah, just come on. We've got the games, we've got the food, the munchies, and all the juice combined.
excellent. Yes.
All right, let's go into the Dragons of Dorwine, that series. Did I pronounce the is it
Dorwine. Yeah.
Dorwine? Okay, so not Dorwin.
And you
All right.
can appreciate that. That's okay because I actually changed some of my pronunciations because Michael Kramer came back and said, "Hey, what if we did this way? How does this sound? Or sometimes this letter combination makes this sound. Do you like that?" And he was extremely gracious. But I wanted to do something different because I my kids started playing right when 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons came out. I cut my teeth on 2nd edition when it came out in '89. So there's a disparity, and we just kind of learned together. And I wanted to play. So we'd done so many iterations over about 6 years where I wanted to do things that were not written on page. I wanted to do magic a little differently. I wanted to handle some of the races. This series of book is a real creature feature. I don't have a lot of human characters in them as main characters because I wanted to explore, and I think it's something fifth edition has done. Maybe too well, but you can play a squirrel or a rabbit or whatever. But just this idea, it fit into the creation of the world that I had imagined, where there were a race of people that were created, and there were two forces that were basically in charge of the creation. These two gods, Kiat and Tor, and they were sub-level, they were lesser gods, but one would create something and then the other one would take it and improve on it. And so you would have elves, and then from that they would take elves and use them as a template and make other races. And that's kind of how the world began. And it became an unhealthy competition. And then you have a bunch of different races, such as like a Malkin or Cathar, if you're a Star Wars fan, but where you mix animals and humanity, and what do you have left? So that's the world's kind of based around that ideology. And then I wanted a continent where dragons rule, because I cut my teeth in Dragonlance and I love Dragonlance.
Oh, me too.
It's just so good. I've read so many of those books. I can't say I've read them all, but I think I'm pretty close. But
Yeah.
and I know Richard Knack. He's a sweet guy. He has been very gracious to me, and we have talked about dragons and minotaurs and all kinds of cool stuff. So I knew I wanted to do that, and so I set the dragons up as sort of a sub pantheon. They make themselves out as gods, and they act like gods. They rule with an iron fist. All the magic in this land is limited to their blood. So they dole their blood out to their followers, who can make potions, or they can write scrolls and use it. But it's only lawful to use dragon's blood for magic. You can't do it any other way. And so that was kind of the seed for the world. And from there, I just kind of went from there. And I had a character in mind that I wanted to be the main character. And that's where Anuka came from. He's a real mess.
I can tell just based off of what little I read about him.
Yeah.
Oh.
he's good because he is the moral antithesis to the story. So I have a moral center where you know, eventually the world needs to gravitate toward the way this Tabir character is. But pretty much Anuka epitomizes what you don't want to be. He's very self-centered and he's, you know, yeah, he's hard to get along with, and he's just charming enough that you can't dismiss him. So there's kind of that tension.
Gotcha. Looking back on the completed trilogy, as far as the blood of a dragon, the eye of a dragon, and the soul of a dragon, is there a moment or character or theme that you're especially proud of?
Yes, there probably are a couple, but the one that kind of resonates with me is that we start to see there are really three stories going on throughout the trilogy. The one story is Anuka looking for his father, and that's pretty straightforward. The second one is sort of the struggle of the people against this tyranny that's over them. And then the third struggle is how the world has lost its faith. There is no the God of creation that imbued everything with existence and cared for everything. There was a rift long ago between him and the people. And I highlight that throughout the story, and really the moment that that I really am proud of is when sort of the Tabir, the sort of moral character, realizes he's not better than everyone else. He has information and he has been blessed and he has all these things, but those are only given to him so he can use them to help other people. Those are not a reflection of how great he is. They are a reflection of what it is that he has to do.
Gotcha. Now, along that same lines, with the especially proud of, is there something that you would approach differently now, given the trilogy?
Definitely. There are several things mechanically I would have done differently. I've gotten better, much better as a writer. I kind of did some info dump things in the first book, and the way I handled the multiple point of views and some of the pacing. The reason that I got into writing a thriller is because another author said, "Yeah, your stuff's a little bit slow at times. It drags. You can fix that if you try to write a thriller." And I thought, okay, so I'll try to write a thriller. And that was good advice because it's very difficult. It's very different. Writing a thriller, the pacing is, you really have to be economical and those things. So there are several things from a mechanical standpoint that I wish I would have done differently. And a couple of character choices that I thought, maybe this would go a different direction. But it's kind of, those are kind of flaws that you kind of have to write around and work with, and they can be
Right.
advantageous. So.
Now, your writing itself, you've mentioned draws from Tolkien and Robert Jordan's epic scope, R.A. Salvatore's Swords and Sorcery, Energy, and even Reformation era Christian theology, plus South and Central American cultural influences. How do those different threads weave together on the page?
Yeah, that's an interesting. It's kind of interesting how you get there because all those things are components of who I am,
Right.
and you write what you know in the sense that um, who you are really pours out and spills into what you write, and whether you try to or not, you end up writing what you love or you're miserable. So.
Yeah.
Um, those things that I really enjoy and that I have a breadth of knowledge about, they just sort of naturally congeal together, even though it seems like things that don't, you wouldn't find those books on those subjects together in a bookstore. Um, but I've had the opportunity to go to several South and Central American countries and meet some really wonderful people um, and learn some about their language. So I had interest in language, and I think that's one of the really defining parts of culture is language. There's so much woven into it that it's that really fascinates me. And the Reformation era theology is this. I've heard that when you turn either 40, and I've heard 50 as well, you either get into Civil War history really deep, or you learn to smoke meat. And I've done both. So, but the Reformation era was another big period. I had about 5 years where I just read a lot. Um, and just the way that the world interacted with that event of the Protestant Reformation, and the way that the Protestants interacted with the Catholics, and then the other religions and all those different things. Um, I think that really shapes how I write, because I try to think about in terms of the characters, like what do they believe at the core? What do they think about life and death and the afterlife and how we're to live and all that stuff. So
Sure. What's your actual writing process like? Do you have a set block of time during the morning, evening, or a target word count you want to hit per day?
that's evolved. I used to drive or commute an hour to work each day to a town where my wife worked. So she would drive and I would write in the mornings, and I would write at home, in the evenings on the way home. We were very busy. I have four boys, all of which were in marching band. So
Oh, yeah.
any marching band parents, they know. And we were the band parents, so we were in charge of all the parents, not in charge as much as organizing. So we were very busy. That was my primary writing time. Now I work remotely and work from home, and I have blocks in the evening after supper, after everyone is doing their thing. The kids are playing magic or playing with the dogs. My wife is sewing. I usually have about a 90-minute block that I can write. And if I'm fortunate and I can, I don't have anything extra in the morning, I have about 45 minutes that I write. And
Fantastic.
yeah, it's been a real blessing. My wife has always created space for me to be able to write.
Good, good.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
fantastic. So now you're working on the Nolan Keller series, grounded Appalachian thrillers, mixing folklore, modern espionage, believable science, which I'm a huge fan of, and conspiracies, starting with The Devil on Klack Mountain. What pulled you from epic fantasy into this more contemporary, grounded territory?
So in 2013, before I had even really thought about publishing, I started on, actually, it would go back farther to 2004. I wrote a character sketch in a creative writing class I had in a college course that I took. And from that came a character in 2013 who was a sort of, if you think of Spider-Man as a street level superhero,
Yeah.
Nolan Keller is a street level spy. He's not James Bond or Jason Bourne. He doesn't have those kind of skills, but he has, his superpower is people. So he has a team, and I wanted to write a team thriller. So I wrote a bunch of sketches, and it's about 6 or 7 different sketches where Nolan essentially meets each of these people that's on his team. And I left it there. And when I was challenged to write a thriller to sharpen my pacing, I naturally gravitated back to Nolan, because he's a compelling character in that he has he deals with ordinary issues in strange ways, and he has problems that maybe some other folks don't have. Um, his dad was in the intelligence business, and when 9/11 happened, he's kind of snapped.
Mm.
He quit his job. He went into a lot of uh, militia training, and he started acquiring all these weird skills, and developed a really deep sense of paranoia, and his 11-year-old son got caught up in all that. So he taught Nolan all
Mm.
these things, and made him learn how to shoot, and learn how to be critical of people and kind of distant, and all these things that Nolan regretted. So when his father disappeared, Nolan has these skills that he doesn't know what to do with. They make him incompatible with normal life. So he's trying to put those things behind him. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of the heart of the story.
Mm. Without major spoilers, what themes of legacy, consequence, and the cost of hard choices carried over from Dorwine into this new series?
Um, so on a personal note, I lost my father when I was 9. He died of colon cancer.
Oh no.
Um, yeah, it was related to a workplace, a place where he worked. About 60% of the people that he worked with died of cancer. It was a nuclear plant, and there were it was a bad situation. Um,
Ooh,
so that was kind of tough. And I didn't process that probably in a healthy way. Nobody, what do you say to a 9-year-old kid who just lost his dad? So
right.
pretty much everybody said nothing, which is, I understand. That's a difficult thing. So the shared thread between Dorwine and with Nolan Keller is this idea of what's my relationship like with my father. Anuka has a very loving father, a very involved father, and a very doting and caring father. And he loses him, and he has to try and find him because that's his connection. Without him, he becomes what you see. He becomes this guy who lies and cheats and steals and whatever he has to do. So he's trying to find that. Whereas the opposite is true for Nolan, where he's trying to distance himself from his father, and he doesn't understand why his father did the things that he did. Why did he make those choices? And how do I separate myself from him? So that theme inadvertently appears in both of the series, of what's my relationship with my father, and how do I grasp that and take that and then become the person that I need to be. Is that an anchor to me, or is it a guidepost? So,
Right. Thank you for sharing that. That's heavy. You're serializing or offering early chapters of the new book. How has that experience of writing and releasing a thriller differed from the fantasy trilogy?
yeah, I didn't take the challenge to write a thriller. I didn't take half measures. I put it on Royal Road and I would release it that way. And so it's out there and people can critique it. And that's difficult, but I wanted to, as quickly as I could, get as much feedback as I could so I can get better at doing that. And that was a different experience. It's more pressure, and sometimes I have to bake discipline in. Like I have to put myself in a situation where, okay, I have to perform, I have to step up. Because if I just say, well, I'm going to do this and I don't have any accountability built in, then I won't do it.
Right.
So when I created some expectations, I think it made the writing better too. Some of that tension sort of escapes into the work.
Right.
Uh, so it was very different. The first book, The Blood of a Dragon, was intense, and I spent a lot of time, and it was hard, but I felt like I was in isolation. I could just churn through it all and finish it. But this is, I feel like I'm a little exposed, and I have people that text me and say, "Hey, you're supposed to put another chapter up. What are you doing?" So, like,
Yeah.
what are you doing with your life? I'm like, oh, come on. Uh,
So, along with Royal Road, you've had success as well promoting on TikTok and building a direct connection with readers. What has the indie author journey taught you about marketing, community, and sustainability that trad publishing paths might miss?
a lot of things. And what's funny is trad is kind of catching on to these things in sort of an offhanded, backhanded kind of way. Um, so you need to be writing. You need to always be writing, and uh, that keeps your creative juices flowing, but also it keeps you relevant. And the reader they want something. They want your next thing, and they want it as soon as they can get it. And I understand there are some authors that as soon as they write, I read their book and say, okay, now what? No.
Yeah.
And I'm able to be a lot more nimble. So if something's not working, for example, TikTok changed drastically several months back, and I was able to kind of pivot out and do some other things. and now it's starting to pick back up, so I can come back into it. And book talk is the new thing again, so I can kind of shift it. I'm allowed to be more flexible in how I market.
Gotcha.
And the trad publishers that I've talked to, their questions are how many followers do you have? What platforms are you active on? What's your follower base look like? Because they recognize that this is how indies are making a big splash. And I think that's the big difference, but they kind of want to capitalize on it. So it's less of a good deal now, I think, to be a traditionally published author than it has been in the past, because you still have to do all the marketing, or
Right.
the majority of the marketing. So.
All righty. Two last questions for you before we draw things to a close here. What advice would you give to someone who has been world building and storytelling for years, maybe through gaming, but hasn't yet taken the leap into finishing and publishing a novel?
If you intend to publish a series, set a plan to write 3 books before you release any books. That will make your life a lot easier, because then you can use momentum that you've stored up and while still moving forward. Another thing is, your first draft is going to be horrible. If you get to a point where you're writing and you're like, this is terrible, keep writing. Of course it is. It's your first draft. That was the hang up that I had. Yeah, for a long time, that kept me from finishing anything. I've got a drawer full of 30,000 word stories, because I would write myself into a place and say, oh, this is awful. I can't stand it. And I would just put it aside. But I go back and say, well, I didn't finish it. And having gone through, there's 7 drafts, I think is the name of the book. I read that book, and it talks about editing your own work, and learning that, yeah, of course it's terrible. It's garbage. Fix it now, and then fix it, and fix it, and fix it, fix it, and then pay somebody to fix it. So those are 2 pieces of advice I would give. And I guess the third would be, don't wait until you have a published book to begin building your space in social media. It's a necessary part of it. You can build excitement by what you're going to do and what interests you. And I think people are drawn to that. So when you have something to sell and to publish, you've got people already built in.
I love that. And finally, where can listeners best find your books and follow your work? Is there anything specific you'd love them to know or try first?
I have recently shifted away from, I used to be all in on Amazon, but now I'm focusing on pushing all my traffic to my website, authorjackadkins.com. You can still get everything on Amazon. You can still get everything on the normal stores. You can get it through Barnes and Noble and all those things. But I think one of the things that I've had a lot of success with, and this includes my audiobooks. I'm a big audiobook guy. I love audiobooks. I was fortunate enough to have Michael Kramer narrate 2 of my books, and we're saving for the 3rd one, because it is a cost, but it's well worth it. And you can purchase those through my site as well, but they're also on Audible. You can get them through Spotify, anywhere that you have stuff. But I think a lot of people hesitate to buy a new book, but I've got 4 free stories. I even have an audio version of one of my short stories. You can get all that through my website. And it's a distant history of Dorwine story that becomes pertinent later on in the series toward the end of the 3rd book. So It kind of ties it together.
Very cool. Jack, thank you so much for your time and just dedicating yourself to the questions here. I truly enjoyed our time together. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, I ask that you please rate and review it and subscribe to wherever you get your podcasts, because it helps me to reach more storytellers just like you. You can also drop me a line on social media or email me directly about who you'd love to hear next, or if you would like to be a guest on the show. Also, I host a Discord server where I showcase my behind-the-scenes work of audiobook narration. I invite you to click the link in the show notes because I would love to have you as a part of that community. And as always, everybody is worthy to be loved. Everybody is worthy to be heard. Everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. So until I talk to you next time, dear listener, peace be with you.